The night Talia Mourn was marked as prey, no wolf chased her. That was what made it worse. Ashcrown did not begin with teeth. It began with ink. The royal court gathered inside the Hall of Warrants, a long black chamber built beneath the throne where every lawful hunt in the kingdom had been written for 300 years. No snow fell here. No forest waited beyond an open gate. There were no howls to make the cruelty honest. Only candles, ledgers, polished stone, and noble witnesses dressed in mourning silver as if the girl they had not yet killed was already a matter of history. Talia stood at the scribe's table with the prey mark drying over her heart. It had not been painted like a target. It had been written. 3 thin lines of white ash ink crossed her skin. 1 for no den, 1 for no witness, 1 for no right to refuse the law. The ink was cold enough to numb the place beneath it. Every breath made it tighten. Lord Huntmaster Severin Holt stood beside her, one gloved hand resting on the open prey ledger. "Write your name," he said. Talia looked down at the page. Her name had already been entered once at the top in Severin's perfect legal hand. Talia Mourn. Boundary Archive Servant. Unclaimed by Sanctuary Blood. Assigned for one-night correction under Crown of Ash Hunt law. Boundary Archive Servant. That was what they called her when they wanted her useful. Prey. That was what they called her when they were done. For 9 years, Talia had copied old sanctuary maps in a locked chamber beneath Ashcrown, tracing faded lines no noble bothered to read. She repaired torn borders, re-inked dead clauses, bound cracked pages with black thread. She knew the shapes of laws that protected widows, children, exiles, and wounded wolves better than the lords who used those laws as decoration. But knowledge was not rank. A servant could preserve the law for years and still be destroyed by a sentence written above her station. Across the chamber, Alpha King Cassian Kallor sat beneath the wolf-bone arch with his crown of dark iron resting low over black hair. He had not spoken since Talia was brought in. He did not lounge. He did not smile. He watched the room with the stillness of a blade left on an altar. His silence pressed harder than Severin's command. Talia had seen him only twice before, always from a distance. Once during a winter execution, once during a border oath. Men lowered their eyes when Cassian passed. Wolves lowered their bodies. Even candle flames seemed to burn more carefully near him. Tonight, he looked at the prey mark over her heart as if trying to remember where he had seen that shape before. Severin dipped the iron quill into ash ink and placed it between Talia's fingers. "Right," he repeated. "The condemned must acknowledge the hunt before the crown may release its wolves." Talia's hand tightened around the quill. "Acknowledge means consent?" A quiet ripple passed through the court. Not laughter. Discomfort. A prey-marked girl was not supposed to ask questions in the language of law. Severin's eyes cooled. "Acknowledge means the record is complete." "That is not what I asked." Someone inhaled sharply behind her. For the first time, Cassian's gaze lifted fully to her face. Talia felt it like moonlight touching a wound. Severin leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Do not mistake a copied map for authority, girl." Talia looked at the ledger again. Her entire life had been made of copied things. Copied borders. Copied names. Copied commands. She had learned early that original voices belonged to people with houses, fathers, banners, and witnesses. Girls like her were allowed to repeat the world, never change it. But the ledger page smelled wrong. Not of old parchment, of fresh snow. Beneath the ash ink, faint silver lines moved like veins under skin. Talia's throat tightened. The map she had repaired in the archive had done that sometimes when no one watched. A twitch of silver under dead ink. A border shifting half a hair toward a forgotten village. A sanctuary clause refusing to stay buried beneath a hunt decree. Whenever she reported it, the senior clerks told her old vellum warped in winter. Old vellum did not breathe. This page did. Severin guided her hand toward the signature line. "Write your name, and the matter ends cleanly." Cleanly. That word almost made her laugh. There was nothing clean about a law that required the hunted to help sharpen the knife. Talia touched the quill tip to the page. The ash ink refused to fall. The black drop clung to the iron nib, trembling. Severin's expression changed so slightly no one else might have seen it. Talia saw fear, hidden under annoyance. He closed his hand over hers and forced the quill down. The nib pierced the page. A thin cut opened across Talia's palm at the same instant. Blood slid over her fingers and fell onto the prey ledger. The chamber went silent. Not because blood was rare in Ashcrown, because the ledger drank it. Silver light erupted beneath the page. The prey ledger slammed shut by itself, crushing the quill between its covers. The candles guttered blue. Every warrant nailed along the walls shuddered, as if struck by wind. Old maps tore free from their shelves, hundreds of them, flying open above the court. Lines of silver boundary fire spilled down from the parchment and crawled across the floor. Not in a circle around Talia, across everyone. The lines passed beneath noble boots, cut through Severin's shadow, climbed the wolf-bone arch behind Cassian, and sealed every door of the Hall of Warrants in burning silver script. A royal guard reached for Talia. The moment his hand crossed one of the lines, his body slammed backward into the wall. No wolf had touched him. No weapon had struck him. The law had refused him. The prey mark over Talia's heart split down the center. White ash turned silver. Above her, the oldest map in the hall unfolded from the ceiling. Its edges blackened, its center blank for 3 centuries. Words burned into it one by one. No hunt may be witnessed by the blood it was sworn to shelter. Refuge, once answered, cannot be hunted cleanly. Talia could not breathe. The court stared at her as if she had become more dangerous standing still than she ever could have been running. Severin stepped back from the table. For the first time since she had known him, the huntmaster forgot to look calm. That clause was abolished, he said. The map answered. Not abolished. Inverted. A sound moved through the chamber then. Low. Broken. Animal. Talia turned. Behind Alpha King Cassian Kallor, his royal wolf shadow had risen against the wall. It should have been enormous. Dark enough to swallow the candles. Powerful enough to make every lesser wolf in the kingdom bare its throat. But the shadow was fraying at the edges. Ash fell from its ribs. Cassian stood slowly. The silver boundary lines brightened beneath his boots, not attacking him, not welcoming him, but judging whether he belonged on either side of the law he had signed. His pale gold eyes moved from the cracked prey mark on Talia's heart to the blood on her hand, then to the map burning above them. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet enough to make the whole court listen. Severin. The huntmaster stiffened. My king. Cassian did not look away from Talia. How many prey warrants did she copy before you chose her name? Severin's silence answered too quickly. Talia felt the room tilt. Cassian looked at the sealed doors, the burning maps, the trembling ledger. Then his gaze returned to her. Colder now. Not with cruelty, but with something far more dangerous. Recognition. You were not selected for the hunt, he said. The prey ledger opened by itself. A hidden page rose from inside it, written in blood that was not fresh. Talia Mourn was assigned to the Boundary Archive for observation. If sanctuary lines respond to her hand, mark her as prey before the king discovers the source. Talia's knees almost failed. Severin moved for the page. Cassian's wolf shadow snarled. Every silver line in the hall flared at once. And the ancient map above Talia burned brighter, writing one final sentence no one in Ashcrown wanted to read. The hunted girl is not outside the law. She is where the law began. The dead law did not answer for Talia. It answered against the hunt. The silver words burned above the Hall of Warrants, bright enough to turn every noble face pale. The hunted girl is not outside the law. She is where the law began. No one spoke at first. Not because they understood, because old law had a way of making even the powerful feel briefly young. Talia stood with one hand still pressed to the prey ledger, blood warm between her fingers, while the silver boundary lines spread across the black floor like roots, searching for buried water. They did not circle her like a shield. They divided the chamber into truths. Every noble boot they touched smoked faintly. Every warrant on the walls trembled. Every door remained sealed. Alpha King Cassian Kallor stood beneath the wolf-bone arch, his face carved from shadow and winter. Behind him, his royal wolf shadow flickered again, the great dark shape fraying at the ribs as if invisible teeth were eating it from within. He had not drawn a blade. He had not ordered Talia seized. But he had not freed her either. Talia remembered that clearly. Kings did not become innocent because a law surprised them. Lord Huntmaster Severin Holt recovered first. Men like him always did. Panic only touched the surface. Beneath it, habit returned. "This is archive corruption," he said, voice calm enough to reassure those desperate to be reassured. "Dead clauses sometimes react to living blood. The girl has spent years handling boundary maps. Her skin may carry old ink." The silver lines flared beneath his boots. Severin stopped moving. Cassian's eyes narrowed. "You said the sanctuary clause was abolished." "It was," Severin replied. The map above them answered in moonfire. "Not abolished. Inverted." A sound moved through the chamber, soft and ugly, nobles whispering to one another without daring to call it fear. Talia looked from the burning map to the king who ruled beneath it. "If the law is dead," she said, her voice hoarse, "why does your court still use its corpse to hunt girls like me?" Cassian's gaze cut to her. The hall went silent all over again. Severin turned slowly. "Mind your tongue." Talia laughed once, quietly. Not because anything was funny, but because her fear had been pressed too tightly to hold its shape. "You painted a hunt warrant on my skin and asked for my signature. Do not ask for manners, too." A few servants near the walls looked at her with something close to terror. Cassian did not look away. For one dangerous moment, Talia thought he might punish her himself. His power filled the room without movement, cold and immense. This was the man whose command could send armies across winter passes. The man whose name made rival packs offer sons as hostages. The man who had signed the hunt laws she copied by candlelight, even if his hands had never touched the girls those laws consumed. Then he spoke. Not softly now, but low enough that every word felt placed with care. "Who taught the law to look away, Severin?" The huntmaster's mouth tightened. "My king, with respect. Dead law cannot judge a living crown." The boundary lines brightened so sharply several nobles cried out. Talia whispered, "Dead laws do not answer unless someone killed them badly." Cassian heard her. She knew because something in his jaw shifted. Before he could respond, Lady Maravos rose from the witness gallery. She had not been present as a jealous girl watching a rival suffer. She stood as something colder than that. A woman whose family rings held 3 carved wolves, whose moon pearls glowed faintly against her throat, whose house had owned the western refuge field since the sanctuary packs disappeared. "Your Majesty," Mara said, every word smooth. "This spectacle threatens more than one warrant. If the old sanctuary lines are allowed to stand, half the noble land grants after the Ash Rebellion may be questioned." There it was. Not jealousy. Inheritance. Talia's eyes moved to the pearls at Mara's throat. Each one was too pale. Not moonstone, not ivory. Something older, polished until it looked holy. The prey ledger shuddered beneath Talia's hand. A page tore itself free and rose into the air. House Voss. Western Refuge conversion. Compensation granted after sanctuary dissolution. The pearl necklace around Mara's throat flickered. Inside each pearl, a tiny silver line appeared. Boundary bone. The words formed in Talia's mind before the map wrote them. Sanctuary bone, polished as court ornament. For the first time, Talia understood that the court did not only hunt refuge, it wore it. Mara's composure cracked for one heartbeat. Then she touched the necklace as if daring anyone to name what it was. Severin stepped between the page and the court. "Enough. The girl's blood is provoking relics. Remove her from the ledger." A royal guard obeyed too quickly. He grabbed Talia's wrist. The boundary line beneath him turned black. The guard screamed and dropped to his knees, not wounded, not torn, but branded across the palm with the same white prey mark Talia carried over her heart. He stared at it in horror. Severin's brush flew from the table by itself. It struck the floor before him. The ash ink in its bristles turned red. Then the prey ledger opened to a hidden register. Not of the hunted, of the sheltered. Names appeared in silver columns, hundreds of them. Children without dens. Exiles under moon protection. Widows of border wars. Wolves wounded before debt trials. Girls with no blood witness. Boys who shifted too late. Mothers who fled noble packs. Old wolves who could no longer fight. Every name had one mark beside it. Sanctuary claimed. Then another mark, written later in black. Prey converted. Talia felt the chamber tilt beneath her. The dried blood in the prey mark over her heart had not come from criminals. It came from those who had once called for refuge. Cassian stepped down from the arch. The lines beneath his boots flared, but did not strike him. They followed him like a question. His wolf shadow staggered behind him. Ash fell from its ribs onto the wall. Talia saw the exact moment he noticed. Not fear for the court, fear for the beast bound to his soul. Severin noticed too. "My king," he said quickly. "Do not let an archive servant turn your attention from the throne's survival. The crown of ash has always required discipline. Mercy without hierarchy becomes rebellion." Talia looked at Cassian. "Is that what you call it when the weak ask not to be hunted?" His eyes moved to her. She hated that part of herself still wanted him to answer well. That was the danger of powerful men. They could make a wounded heart hope for justice from the same hand that held the knife. Cassian said nothing. So Talia pulled her bleeding hand from the ledger and placed it flat on the old map now burning across the table. The pain made her breath break. "I will not run," she said, "until the law names who taught it to look away." The Hall of Warrants groaned. Severin lunged for her. Cassian moved half a step, then stopped. Not choosing her. Not yet. The boundary chose faster. Silver fire rose between Severin and Talia, throwing the huntmaster back against the witness table. Warrants rained from the walls. The prey ledger turned its pages so violently the air filled with ash and moonlit dust. Then the sealed sanctuary gate at the far end of the chamber opened by itself. Behind it was not a passage. It was a wall of names. Cassian stopped breathing before the name fully formed. One name burned brighter than the rest. The first name was not Talia's. It was the Alpha King's mother. The Alpha King's mother had not been written among queens. She had been written among the sheltered. Cassian stopped breathing before the name finished burning. Isolde Vale. Not Isolde Kallor. Not Queen Isolde of Ashcrown. Not mother of the sitting king. Just Isolde Vale, sanctuary claimant. Written in the same ledger as abandoned children, hunted widows, debt-marked wolves, and exiles who had once placed their blood on stone and asked the old law not to let them die. The court understood the danger before Talia did. A royal mother's name did not belong there. A queen was supposed to rise from lineage, treaty, conquest, or sacred mate bond. Not from shelter. Not from refuge. Not from the same law the crown of ash had turned into a hunting ritual. Cassian stared at the name as if it had opened inside his chest. He did not move. He did not speak. He did not look angry yet. That made the silence worse. Behind him, his royal wolf shadow trembled against the wall, rib by rib. Ash, loosening from its dark outline, and drifting upward like smoke from a dying altar. Talia watched his face and refused to pity him too quickly. Pain did not erase power. And power had signed her name. She turned back to the burning gate. Was she hunted too? The question crossed the hall like a blade drawn slowly. Lord Huntmaster Severin Holt answered before Cassian could. Royal mothers cannot be prey. The sanctuary gate corrected him. The silver letters beneath Isolde Vale's name shifted. Sanctuary claimed. Prey converted. Crown absorbed. No one breathed. Then the prey ledger opened on the table and showed another page, older than the rest, its edges darkened by fire. Subject: Isolde Vale. Status: Shelter claimant. Boundary accepted. Crown petition filed. Conversion approved under emergency succession doctrine. Talia read the words once, then again. Conversion approved. Crown absorbed. The language was clean enough to make the crime look almost merciful. Cassian's hand closed slowly at his side. Explain it. Severin's mouth tightened. Your Majesty, explain it. The command struck the chamber with enough force to make the candles bend. Severin bowed his head, but only halfway. Your mother entered Ashcrown during the last border famine. She had no confirmed house, no secure protector, and no political value. The old sanctuary law accepted her before the crown did. Lady Maravos stepped down from the witness gallery, her sanctuary bone pearls glowing faintly at her throat. She looked composed again. Worse than composed. Interested. And because the court could not allow a future king to descend from a shelter claimant, she said. The claim was converted. Talia looked at her. Converted into what? Mara's pale eyes rested on her with cold patience. Marriage. Legitimacy. Silence. Cassian's wolf shadow snarled. Myra did not flinch. Do not look at me as if House Voss wrote the doctrine alone. Every noble house in this hall benefited from it. Refuge fields became estates. Sanctuary bones became relics. Hunted blood became legal ink. Your throne stands on the same conversion that gave my house its western lands. Talia's eyes moved to the pearls at Mara's throat. For the first time she understood that Mara was not merely guarding rank. She was guarding a grave that had been turned into jewelry. The prey ledger trembled beneath Talia's hand. More pages rose. Land grants. Marriage contracts. Hunt warrants. Adoption denials. Debt seizures. All of them threaded with the same silver line. All of them beginning with sanctuary claims and ending in crown use. Talia felt sick. She asked for refuge, she said. The map above answered. Refuge answered. Her voice came out quieter. And the crown took her instead? No one corrected her. Cassian finally looked away from his mother's name and toward Severin. Did she know? Severin's silence was too careful. The sanctuary gate wrote again. Witness removed before royal sealing. Cassian's face changed. Not dramatically. Something behind his eyes simply shut like an iron door. Talia knew that expression. She had seen it in boys at the lower kennels when they realized the person who fed them could also sell them. She had seen it in servants the first time a kind voice gave a cruel order. The moment when pain became too large for the body and turned cold. But she did not soften. Not yet. When Cassian looked at her, she said, "Your mother's name does not free me from mine." The words landed hard. His jaw tightened. Good. Let him feel both wounds at once. Severin took advantage of the silence. My king, this is why the old law was buried. It does not distinguish between a crown and a criminal. If you allow it to speak, every succession after the Ash Rebellion can be challenged. Every land grant. Every prey conversion. Every noble oath. Mara's gaze sharpened. Including yours. The chamber shifted. There it was. The threat beneath the truth. Cassian Kallor might be Alpha King by crown, war, and blood. But if his mother's shelter claim had been converted to make his birth appear pure, then the same court that crowned him could now call him compromised. Half the nobles in the hall looked suddenly less afraid of the law and more interested in what could be taken from him. Talia saw Cassian notice. His kingdom was not confessing. It was calculating. His wolf shadow flickered again. A strip of ash opened along its flank, showing a dim silver wound underneath. The prey ledger wrote one more line. Royal wolf deterioration, linked to broken sanctuary oath. Cassian read it. So did Severin. So did Myra. The air changed. Now the truth had teeth. Severin spoke carefully. If the royal wolf is weakening, then Ashcrown needs stability above all else. Suspend this hearing. Seal the archive servant. Give the court time to assess the damage. Talia almost smiled. Seal the archive servant. Not kill her. Not free her. Seal her. That was how they spoke when the truth still had a pulse. Cassian looked at the prey ledger, then at the sealed doors, then at the long rows of names burning behind the sanctuary gate. At last he said, "All prey warrants are suspended." The court erupted. Not with relief. With horror. A dozen nobles began speaking at once. You cannot. The border hunts are already prepared. Debt packs will revolt. House Voss will not surrender legally granted refuge land. Myra's voice cut through them all. If prey warrants fall, sanctuary claims reopen. If sanctuary claims reopen, the Western estates collapse. If the Western estates collapse, half your army loses its winter supply. Cassian did not look at her. Then, half my army has been fed by theft. Severin's expression hardened. Talia felt the boundary lines beneath her feet warm, but she did not mistake that warmth for victory. Cassian had suspended the hunts. He had not yet survived the cost. The boundary lines did not fear Severin. They feared what he carried. Severin stepped backward, away from the table, away from the silver lines. You think the old law woke because a servant spoke bravely? His calm had changed. It was no longer polished. It was old, almost sorrowful. The sanctuary law was not buried because kings hated mercy, he said. It was buried because mercy made wolves impossible to rule. His hand moved to the clasp beneath his wolf cloak. Cassian's eyes narrowed. Severin. The huntmaster pulled the cloak aside. At his hip hung a narrow blade of blackened silver, its handle wrapped in cracked white leather. The moment it appeared, every boundary line on the floor recoiled. Talia felt the prey ledger shiver beneath her palm. The sanctuary gate dimmed. Severin drew the blade slowly. My family kept the instrument that ended the first sanctuary age, he said. The blade gave off no light. That was what made it terrifying. It was a darkness shaped sharp enough to cut a law. And when Severin pointed it toward Talia, the silver words above the gate began to bleed. Severin's knife was not made to spill blood. It was made to make spilled blood stop counting. Talia understood that before anyone else did. Not because she was wiser than kings, nor braver than soldiers, but because she had spent half her life reading laws no one wanted to remember. She knew the shape of a sentence when it had been wounded. She knew when ink was hiding a scream. The silver words above the sanctuary gate bled downward in thin, bright lines. Refuge, once answered, cannot be hunted cleanly. The word refuge split first, not erased. Good. A black seam opened through its center, and the moonfire around it dimmed like a throat closing around an unfinished plea. Cassian stepped forward. The boundary lines rose between him and Severin, not like a wall, like judgment. The Alpha King stopped, one boot over the burning silver line, his black armor catching the gate's wounded light. His wolf shadow surged behind him, huge and furious. But the moment it touched the boundary, ash tore from its chest. Cassian's jaw clenched, not from fear, but from the pain of being refused by the very law his crown had broken. Severin smiled without warmth. You see, my king? Even dead mercy knows better than to trust a crown too quickly. Cassian's gaze hardened. Move that blade away from her. The blade is not pointed at her body. Talia's voice cut through them both. The court turned. She kept one bleeding hand on the prey ledger, and looked at the blackened silver in Severin's grip. Every instinct in her body screamed to step back, but the boundary lines under her palm pulsed with a rhythm too old to be comfort. Not protection. Evidence. That blade does not cut bodies first, she said. It cuts the place a body runs to. The sanctuary gate flared once, weakly, as if the law had heard itself named correctly. Severin's eyes narrowed. For the first time, he looked at her not as a useful archive servant, not as a girl inconveniently alive, but as a door he had failed to lock. Mara Voss descended another step from the gallery, her sanctuary bone pearls glowing cold against her throat. How poetic, she said. But poetry will not hold a kingdom together. No, Talia answered. Theft seems to have done that for you. A harsh breath moved through the court. Mara's face did not change, but the pearls at her throat clicked softly against one another, as if the bones inside them remembered being named. Then she turned to the nobles. Do you not understand what stands before you? If a sold veil was shelter, blood, then Cassian's line was purified by fraud. His claim may be strong by conquest, but by sanctuary law, his royal legitimacy is contaminated. Cassian did not look at her. That restraint was more frightening than anger. Mara lifted her chin. A compromised alpha cannot suspend prey warrants that protect noble land. Talia looked at Cassian then. This was the moment that mattered. Not whether he could roar loud enough to silence Mara. Not whether he could kill Severin. Strength could stop a blade. Only truth could make a cut illegal. Cassian's eyes met hers. There was pain there. Rage, too. But beneath both, something harder to trust. Calculation. A king measuring how much truth his throne could survive. Talia did not offer him comfort. She gave him the knife of a question instead. What did that blade cut first? The prey ledger slammed open. Pages ripped backward so violently that ash flew into the air like black snow. The old maps overhead trembled. The sanctuary gate groaned, and the bloody seam through the word refuge widened. Severin raised the knife. Do not answer her. But the ledger had already begun. First sanctuary age. Witness stone established under Moon Compact. Refuge accepted for all wolves without den. Standing. Strength. Or claim. Hunt forbidden across answered blood. Talia read fast, heart hammering. Then the page changed. First breach. Holt line appointed as royal mediators. Witness stone cut during emergency order. Refuge clauses redirected to prey classification. The halls seemed to drop beneath her. She looked at Severin. Your family didn't serve the kings. Severin's expression became still. Talia's voice lowered. You taught kings how to hunt mercy. The silver boundary lines flashed white. Somewhere among the sealed doors, a wolf whimpered. Severin's calm finally cracked, not into rage, but into something older than rage. Belief. Mercy without hierarchy is collapse, he said. Sanctuary made every weak wolf untouchable, every exile sacred, every border beggar equal to the blood that defended them. Packs cannot be ruled if every frightened creature may draw a line in the snow and call it holy. Talia felt the words hit a place inside her that still remembered being small at the kennel wall. A child with no den. A girl who had learned not to ask why the warm rooms were always for those already claimed. No, she said. Packs cannot be ruled by cowards if the hunted can still say no. The sanctuary gate blazed. The word refuge began to mend. Severin moved, not toward Talia's throat, toward the silver prey mark over her heart. Cassian lunged. The boundary struck him back. He did not fall, but he staggered, one hand catching the edge of the wolf bone arch. His face twisted as his wolf shadow tore at the line between them. Furious and useless. The old law would not let the crown repair what the crown had not fully named. Talia saw the truth before he did. Cassian could not save her by command. Not yet. Severin crossed the boundary easily. That terrified the court more than if he had been thrown back. The knife knew the old lines. It had killed them before. He stopped before Talia, close enough that she could see the cracks in the white leather wrapped around the blade's handle. Not leather. Bone-thin. Pale. Polished by generations of hands that called themselves necessary. Run, he said quietly. Talia stared at him. If you run, the law remains confused. If you stand, I cut the claim from you. There will be no refuge left to answer. Her breath shook once, then steadied. I will not be the last refuge you convert. Severin's mouth tightened. He pressed the blade to the prey mark over her heart. Cold entered her. Not through skin, through meaning. The white ash ink split open. The silver that had replaced it screamed soundlessly beneath the knife. Talia's knees almost buckled as every old warrant in the room tried to decide whether she was prey, witness, servant, claimant, liar, girl. The blade dragged downward. The sanctuary word above the gate bled harder. Cassian shouted her name. This time, it did not sound like command. It sounded like fear. Talia held the ledger with both hands and forced herself to look down at the mark being cut open on her chest. The knife did not erase it. It revealed what had been buried underneath. A symbol burned through the ash ink. A crescent boundary line crossed by a single wolf print. The hall went silent. Even Severin froze. The prey ledger turned one final page by itself. Original sanctuary sigil identified. Talia could not breathe. The sigil was not hers. It belonged to the first wolf ever hunted under a false warrant. The mark beneath Talia's skin did not glow like a blessing. It opened like an old wound deciding to testify. The crescent boundary line and the single wolf print burned under the split prey mark, silver beneath the white ash ink Severin had used to name her lawful prey. His blade still touched her chest, but it no longer moved. Its blackened edge trembled, as if it had found a scar it remembered making. For the first time, Severin Holt looked careful. Not afraid of Talia. Afraid of what her skin had remembered. What is that? Maravos demanded from the gallery. No one answered her. The prey ledger did. Its pages turned to one so old the parchment looked like dried moonlight. First false warrant. Subject. Narrow Mourn. Status. Sanctuary witness. Charge assigned. Unlawful sheltering of prey. Talia stared at the name. Mourn. Not a pity name given by kennel matrons. Not a mark for a girl no one claimed. A record. Severin's voice hardened. That line is extinct. The sigil under Talia's mark burned hotter. The ledger corrected him. Not extinct. Unregistered. A low sound moved through the servants along the walls. In Ashcrown, unregistered blood was more dangerous than dead blood. Dead blood could be mourned, buried, and stolen from. Unregistered blood meant something had survived outside permission. Cassian took one step toward her. The boundary stopped him again. This time he did not fight it. He looked down at the silver line, then at Talia, and she saw the question in his eyes. What must I admit before the law lets me come closer? She did not answer for him. She turned back to the ledger. What did Talia Mourn do? The old page flickered. Talia Mourn answered refuge for 7 wolves marked by false debt. Huntmasters petitioned Crown for emergency correction. Witness stone resisted. Holt blade applied. Refuge claims severed. Sheltered wolves reclassified as prey. Talia understood then. The first sanctuary age had not ended because wolves stopped needing refuge. It ended because someone found a weapon that could make answered blood stop counting. Severin had not been holding a knife. He had been holding the first lie made sharp. Your family cut the witness stone, Talia said. Because it protected the wrong wolves. Severin's calm thinned. It protected everyone. That was the danger. The danger, she said, was that Mercy did not ask rank before answering. Mara stepped forward, sanctuary bone pearls clicking at her throat. A dead witness cannot overturn 3 centuries of rule. The ledger turned another page. House Voss. Secondary beneficiary. Sanctuary field transfer after first false warrant. Mara's face chilled. Talia looked at her necklace. How many of those pearls came from witnesses? Careful, archive girl. No, Talia said. That is what you are afraid of. That I am careful. The words steadied her. She was not stronger than them. She did not have Cassian's crown, Mara's lineage, or Severin's blade, but she had copied what they forgot. She had read what they buried. She had touched the page they needed dead. She had not awakened protection. She had awakened evidence. Severin pressed the blade harder against the silver sigil. Pain struck through Talia's chest, and her knees nearly buckled. She caught the table with one hand. Cassian moved. The boundary flared. He stopped himself before it threw him back. Talia, he said. Her name in his mouth sounded almost gentle. She hated that it still reached her. She forced herself to look away. Do not say my name as if that repairs where you wrote it. The words hit him hard. Good. Then she looked down at the ledger. What did the first false warrant say? For the first time the page hesitated. Severin smiled faintly. Some records do not survive. Talia pressed her bleeding palm harder to the parchment. Then borrow mine. The room froze. A silver line shot from the page into her wound. The hall vanished. For one heartbeat, Talia stood in a snowy field under an older moon. 7 wounded wolves crouched behind a boundary line. A woman stood before them with dark hair whipping in the wind, and the same crescent wolf sigil burning over her heart. Talia Mourn. Not Queen. Not Luna. Witness. Men in Holt Grey surrounded the field. A younger huntmaster held the same blackened blade. Behind him, nobles watched from horseback. Nero's voice carried through time. No wolf who reaches refuge leaves it as prey. Then the blade struck the boundary stone. The silver line split. The 7 sheltered wolves began to scream. The vision shattered. Talia returned with a gasp. Severin's blade still touched her. Cassian stared at her, as if he had watched her vanish and come back carrying a war. The prey ledger wrote in living silver. First false warrant recovered. No wolf who reaches refuge leaves it as prey. The sanctuary gate thundered. Every sealed door shook. The sigil over Talia's heart blazed so brightly that Severin recoiled. The black edge of his blade smoked. For the first time, the knife had failed to cut cleanly. Cassian looked at the silver line barring him from the table. Then he dropped to one knee. Not before Talia. Before the boundary. The court gasped. Cassian placed one hand on the line and did not pull back when it burned him. I name the debt, he said. Severin's face tightened. My king. My crown was fed by converted refuge, Cassian said. My mother's shelter was stolen into lineage. My warrants were written over unanswered blood. The boundary listened, not forgiving him. Listening, Cassian lifted his eyes to Talia. And I signed what I did not have the courage to read. The line before him dimmed. Enough for one step. Severin saw it. His hand moved fast, not toward Talia but toward the ledger. The black blade came down across Narrow's recovered words. Talia moved first. She slammed her bleeding hand over the sentence. The knife struck her palm. Silver fire exploded through the hall. The prey ledger screamed open to its final hidden register. Boundary blood detected. Living claimant confirmed. Talia stared as the sigil under her skin spread down her arm in burning silver lines. Then one last sentence appeared beneath her name. Talia Mourn is not prey under the law. She is the surviving witness of the first refuge. The hall did not celebrate Talia's name. It recoiled from what her name made visible. Living claimant. Surviving witness. First refuge. The words burned in the prey ledger with a silver light so sharp that several nobles turned their faces away, as if truth were a flame meant only for servants and ghosts. Talia kept her bleeding hand over Narrow Mourn's recovered sentence, though the cut in her palm throbbed where Severin's blade had struck. The sigil beneath her skin had spread down her arm in thin crescent lines, beautiful and terrible, not like decoration, but like an old map deciding to draw itself through bone. Cassian stood one step closer than before. Only one. The boundary had allowed him that much after his confession, but the silver line still lay between them, dimmer now, not gone. He looked at it with controlled fury, as if he had never hated a wall more because he knew he had helped build it. Severin's blade smoked in his hand. The blackened silver had failed to cut Narrow's words cleanly. But it had not broken. That frightened Talia. Failed things with sharp edges often became more dangerous. Myra Voss was the first to understand the next threat. She is not prey, Mara said, voice clear enough to carry through the shaken hall. Very well. Then she is evidence. Talia's stomach tightened. Cassian turned his head slowly. Choose your next words with care. Mara did not step back. Her sanctuary bone pearls glowed faintly at her throat, each polished fragment holding a stolen gleam. Evidence does not walk freely through a court it can destroy. If she is a living claimant, then she must be held until the council determines which records she can lawfully reopen. Several nobles seized on that too quickly. Yes, protect the records, secure the witness, seal her until the council convenes. Talia almost laughed. Only Ashcrown could stop calling a girl prey, and immediately search for a cleaner cage. Cassian's voice dropped. No one seals her. Severin looked up. Then claim responsibility for her. The hall went silent. Talia felt the boundary line beneath her feet go cold. Cassian did not answer quickly. That was how she knew the trap was real. Severin's expression steadied. If the Alpha King takes custody of the witness, the crown becomes her legal shelter. The old law will treat every truth she speaks as crown-handled testimony. Every reopened claim returns through you. Every sanctuary debt becomes yours to interpret. Mara's eyes sharpened. And every noble house may accuse you of using a false refuge claimant to seize land, rewrite succession, and break old grants. The nobles began whispering again, no longer terrified of Talia, but of what Cassian might gain or lose by standing near her. Talia looked at him. She saw it then, the dangerous calculation she had feared in him since the beginning. Not cruelty, not cowardice, something more complicated and more useful to a king. The habit of weighing a person against a realm. His mother's name had wounded him. His wolf was dying. His throne had been fed by theft. But Talia was still the one standing with a cut hand over the sentence everyone wanted buried. She pulled her palm from the ledger. Blood stretched in a thin silver thread between her skin and the page before snapping. I will not be transferred from prey to property, she said. Cassian's eyes returned to her. She looked past him to the court. And I will not become the king's clean way of owning what his crown broke. The boundary line warmed beneath her feet. Not soft. Approving. Severin's jaw tightened. You speak as if law cares what you want. No, Talia said. I speak as someone who copied enough law to know when it is afraid of choice. The prey ledger trembled. A new sentence wrote itself beneath her name. A living sanctuary witness cannot be claimed by the debt she names. Cassian read it. For the first time since the gate opened. Something like relief almost reached his face. Almost. Then pain struck his wolf shadow. The dark shape behind him convulsed against the wall, jaws opening in a silent howl. Ash tore from its chest and spilled down in thick gray streams. Cassian's hand closed over his own ribs, as if the wound had entered him too. Talia took one instinctive step forward. The boundary did not stop her. She froze. So did the court. Cassian noticed the movement. His eyes lifted to hers, not asking, not commanding, but startled by the fact that the old law had allowed her to cross toward him when it would not allow him to cross toward her. That small permission felt more dangerous than any touch. Talia stopped before she reached him. She would not let pity become a chain. "What is happening to your wolf?" she asked. Cassian's mouth tightened. Severin answered instead. "The royal wolf has carried the crown of ash since his coronation. It bears the burden of judgment, so the kingdom may remain ordered." The ledger corrected him. "Crown of ash sustains itself through converted sanctuary blood. Royal wolf deterioration accelerates with each prey warrant signed." The hall went deathly still. Talia looked at Cassian. This time, he did not look away. "How many?" she asked. His silence cut worse than an answer. The ledger gave one anyway. Prey warrants under Cassian Kallor's reign. 912. Talia felt the number enter her body like winter water. 912. Not all killed, perhaps. Not all caught. Not all remembered. But all signed. All made possible. Cassian's face went hollow. Talia wanted to hate him cleanly. It would have been easier. But his wolf shadow was falling apart behind him, and he was staring at the number as if each warrant had just grown teeth and turned toward his throat. Still, she did not comfort him. "Your pain is late," she said. His eyes flinched. She was glad. Then Severin moved. Not toward Talia. Toward the prey ledger's lower seal. He dragged the black blade across a line Talia had not noticed before. A crown clause written in faded ash. Emergency containment of unstable witness. The clause split open. The silver light around Talia's arm snapped tight. The sigil burned from her wrist to her shoulder, then across her chest. She gasped as every map in the hall turned toward her at once. Not like pages, but like wolves scenting a wound. Severin's voice rang out. "If the witness cannot be claimed, she can be compelled to complete testimony." Cassian lunged forward. The boundary blocked him again. This time he struck it with both hands. And silver fire burned up his arms. "Talia." She barely heard him. The hall of warrants stretched around her, black stone warping into silver lines. Doors becoming maps. Maps becoming roads. Roads becoming one path leading downward beneath the court. The prey ledger wrote with brutal clarity. Living witness must stand before the original witness stone. First refuge debt remains unpaid. 7 sheltered wolves remain uncounted. Talia's breath broke. The 7 wolves from Narrow's memory. The ones who had screamed when the Holt blade cut the boundary. Mara whispered. "Where are they?" The ledger answered. "Beneath the royal kennels." Every wolf in the hall began to howl. Not in hunger. In recognition. The floor beneath Talia opened into a stair of silver boundary fire leading down into darkness. Severin smiled then, tired and cruel. Let her see what mercy preserved. Talia looked down into the black beneath Ashcrown and heard, far below, 7 ancient wolves breathing like they had never been allowed to die. Then one of them spoke her name. The stairway opened beneath Talia before anyone decided whether she was brave enough to descend. Silver boundary fire shaped each step, leading below the Hall of Warrants, below the throne, below the royal kennels where the wolves of Ashcrown had been trained to obey a crown, fed by something buried. From above, the prey ledger wrote one clear command. The witness must descend. Cassian moved toward her. The boundary rose between them at once. "I am going with her," he said. The ledger answered. "The crown may not descend as owner." Talia looked back at him. "There is your problem." Cassian's jaw tightened. For a moment, the king and the wounded man inside him seemed to stand in separate shadows. "What does the law require?" he asked. The sanctuary gate wrote in silver. "Name the descent." Cassian looked at the stairway, then at Talia's bleeding hand. "The witness descends by her own right," he said. "Not by crown custody. Not by royal protection. Not by my command." The boundary dimmed. Then the ledger added another sentence. "The crown may follow only as debtor." The court gasped. Cassian removed the dark iron crown from his head and placed it on the black floor. "I follow as debtor." The boundary allowed him one step. Only one. Talia did not thank him. Gratitude could wait until survival had space for it. She turned and descended. The air changed below the third step. Ink and candle smoke vanished. In their place came wet stone, old fur, iron, and something sour beneath it. As if mercy had been kept alive too long in a room without air. The stairs ended beneath the royal kennels. 7 wolves lay chained in a circle around a black ash pit. They were enormous, ancient, and too thin beneath silver-gray fur stretched over long bones. Their eyes were clouded with moonlight. Black roots grew through the chains at their throats and climbed into the ceiling, up toward the kennels, up toward the throne, up toward the crown of ash. Each breath they took shook the palace. Each exhale smelled of snow, age, and pain. Cassian reached the chamber behind her and stopped. His wolf shadow appeared against the wall, fraying badly now. The moment it saw the 7 wolves, it lowered its head, not in command. In recognition, the first chained wolf turned its cloudy eyes toward Talia. "Mourn," it said. The voice came from the chain, not the mouth. Talia's throat closed. You knew Narrow. The chamber wall lit with memory. Narrow Mourn standing in a snowy field beneath an older moon. 7 wounded wolves behind her boundary line. Holt riders closing in. The black blade rising. But this time, the memory did not stop at the cut. After the witness stone broke, the 7 sheltered wolves did not die. They were taken, dragged under Ashcrown, chained beneath the kennels, forced to breathe through the broken law they had trusted. Severin's voice echoed from above. Mercy preserved them. Talia stared at the roots in their throats. Mercy was imprisoned with them. The prey ledger answered across the ash pit. 7 sheltered wolves converted into foundation witnesses. Breath redirected to crown of ash. Royal wolf authority stabilized by unpaid refuge debt. Cassian made a small sound behind her. Almost nothing. But Talia heard the break in it. My wolf, he said. The ledger answered. Fed by them, the truth settled over the chamber like frost. Cassian's royal wolf had not been dying because of an enemy curse. It had been starving on a debt his crown kept demanding and never paid. Mara's voice rang down from the hall. If they are released, the royal wolf collapses. Without the royal wolf, Ashcrown loses the winter pax. Severin added, colder now. And without the winter pax, border war begins before dawn. There it was, the old trap. Free the suffering and risk the throne. Leave them chained and call it survival. Talia looked at Cassian. He did not ask her to stop. That mattered, but it did not absolve him. She approached the first wolf. The chain tightened as she lifted her bleeding hand. She stopped before touching it. Do you want release? She asked. Cassian looked sharply at her. No one above had asked that in 300 years. The wolf's clouded eyes cleared slightly. We wanted refuge, it said. Release came later. Talia understood. Death had not been their first prayer. Safety had. She looked at the chain around its throat. What is your name? The roots hissed. From above, Severin shouted. Do not ask that. So Talia knew she had found the wound. She stepped closer. What is your name? The first wolf opened its jaws. The root in its throat split. Silver light poured out. Narrow, of the field, it said. The ash pit cracked. One black root snapped from the ceiling. Above, the hall of warrants shook. Cassian staggered as pain tore through his wolf shadow, but he did not command her to stop. Talia turned to the second wolf. What is your name? Mara screamed from above. Stop her. At the top of the stair, Severin appeared with the blackened blade in his hand. If she names all 7, he said, the crown of ash loses the debt that makes a king obeyed. Talia looked from the chained wolves to Cassian. His face was pale. His wolf shadow was unraveling. For the first time, the choice was clean enough to terrify everyone. Then the second wolf opened its mouth, and Cassian whispered, Let it speak. The second wolf's name did not come out as sound. It came out as a broken chain. Snow. Between teeth, it said. The black root in its throat split from collar to ceiling. Silver light poured through the crack, and somewhere above them, the royal kennels erupted into howls. Not hunger, not obedience. Recognition. The ash pit widened. Cassian staggered. one hand pressed against the stone wall. His wolf shadow tore at the ribs, shedding gray ash as if every restored name removed another stolen bone from its body. Talia looked at him. He was in pain. Real pain. But he did not tell her to stop. That mattered more than any promise he could have spoken. She turned to the third chained wolf. "What is your name?" Severin descended 3 steps with the blackened blade in his hand. "You are undoing the command structure of Ashcrown." Talia did not look back. "No. I am asking prisoners what they were called before your family made them useful." The third wolf lifted its head. "Marrow of winter." Another root snapped. The chamber shook hard enough to rain dust from the ceiling. Above, nobles cried out. Mara's voice cut through the panic. "If the king's wolf collapses, House Voss will call an emergency succession council." Cassian's jaw tightened. Talia heard it for what it was. Not concern for the kingdom. Opportunity wearing legal robes. She looked at Cassian again. "Is that enough to stop you?" His pale gold eyes met hers through the silver dark. "No." The word was quiet, but it held. Talia turned to the fourth wolf. "What is your name?" "Little Fang at Dawn." The answer broke another chain. This time Cassian went to one knee. His wolf shadow folded behind him, smaller now, still powerful, but no longer swollen with stolen breath. It looked less like a royal beast and more like a wounded creature forced to remember how much of itself had never truly belonged to it. Severin reached the bottom stair. The boundary lines recoiled from his blade, but Talia stepped between him and the wolves before Cassian could move. Cassian's eyes sharpened. "Talia." "No," she said without turning. "This is not yours to block either." The words landed between them like cold iron. He stopped. Severin's gaze fixed on her. "You think asking names is mercy?" "I think not asking was the crime." The 7 were preserved. They were used. They kept the kingdom stable. So did the girls you marked as prey. So did the widows. So did every wolf who ran because your law turned fear into fuel. Severin's expression did not change, but his grip tightened on the blade. Talia saw the truth in him then. He did not enjoy suffering. That almost made him worse. He believed suffering became sacred when arranged for political survival. She raised her bleeding hand over the ash pit. "The witness asks," she said. The sheltered answer. "No crown interrupts refuge. No huntmaster converts it." The prey ledger above answered through the chamber walls. "Accepted." The 5th wolf opened its cloudy eyes. "River hides the lame." Another root snapped. The royal wolf shadow behind Cassian gasped without a mouth. Black ash fell away from its shoulders, revealing dim silver wounds beneath. Cassian bowed his head once. Not in defeat. In grief. Mayara's voice rang from above. "Look at him! Your witness is stripping the king's wolf in front of the court." Talia looked up toward the stair. "No. The truth is removing what was never his." The words silenced even the howling for one breath. Then the 6th wolf spoke before she asked. "Old Ear, who heard the children?" The chain shattered. The entire palace groaned. Far above, something heavy cracked. The throne, perhaps. Or the crown. Or the old belief that power remained clean if no one looked beneath it. Cassian's shadow shrank again, but it did not vanish. It stood behind him, thinner and truer, silver lines glowing faintly through its dark ribs. Talia realized then that the royal wolf was not only losing stolen strength, it was surviving the theft. Severin realized it too. His calm finally broke. He lunged toward the 7th wolf, not to kill it, but to cut the name before it could be spoken. Talia moved first. She slammed her blood-marked palm against the black blade's flat edge. Pain burned up her arm. The blade tried to make her blood stop counting. The sigil beneath her skin flared brighter. For one breath, she felt every old refuge call behind her. Children, widows, exiles, wounded wolves, all of them pressing toward the same word. "No." The blade smoked. Severin stared at her. "You cannot hold that edge." "I am not holding it," Talia said through clenched teeth. "I am making it answer what it cut." The prey ledger thundered above. Holt blade recognized. Original cut unpaid. Witness may demand first debt. Severin went pale. Talia turned slowly to the 7th wolf. It was the smallest of them, though still larger than any living beast she had ever seen. Its fur was nearly white. Its eyes were clearer than the others, old and sorrowful, fixed not on Talia but on Cassian. Talia's voice softened despite herself. "What is your name?" The seventh wolf did not answer at once. Cassian rose unsteadily behind her. The wolf looked at him, and when it finally spoke, its voice came from the ash pit. The chains, the roots, and the fraying royal shadow all at once. "I was called Hearth Wolf of Vale." Cassian froze. Val, his mother's name. The wolf continued. "I answered refuge for Isolde Vale when she came carrying a child beneath her heart." The chamber went still. Even Severin did not move. Talia felt the truth before the ledger wrote it. Isolde had not entered Ashcrown alone. The sanctuary law had not sheltered only Cassian's mother. The prey ledger burned open across the ash pit. Isolde Vale. Shelter claimant. Unborn child witnessed under refuge line. Crown conversion concealed secondary claimant. Cassian stared at the words as if the floor had vanished beneath him. Talia whispered, "You were counted before the crown claimed you." The seventh wolf lowered its head. "Before Cassian Kallor was king," it said, "he was refuge." Above them, the dark iron crown on the hall floor cracked in half. The crown did not break like metal. It broke like a verdict. Far above the buried chamber, the dark iron crown split across the hall of warrants, and every wolf in Ashcrown felt the sound under its ribs. The 7 chained wolves lifted their heads. Cassian stood beneath the kennels with his face drained of color, staring at the words burning over the ash pit. Before Cassian Kallor was king, he was refuge. No noble voice rose at first. The truth was too dangerous to interrupt. Then Mara Voss found her courage inside ambition. "If the king was born under sanctuary claim," she called from above, "then his crown rests on converted blood. House Voss invokes emergency succession review." The words struck like a second blade. Cassian did not move. Talia watched him carefully. This was the moment kings loved to hide inside pain. His mother had been taken. His birth had been rewritten. His wolf had been fed by chained sanctuary witnesses. All of that was true. But Talia's name was still on a prey warrant. The 7 wolves were still chained. His suffering could not be allowed to become the room everyone else disappeared inside. Severin Holt stood at the foot of the stair with the blackened blade lowered in his hand. His calm had returned, but it was thinner now. "You can still stop this, my king," he said. "Deny the refuge claim. Name yourself crown, born before shelter. Born. The law will close. The witnesses will remain below. Your wolf will survive with enough strength to hold the winter packs." Cassian's eyes lifted to him. Severin softened his voice. "The kingdom needs a king more than it needs old mercy." Talia stepped between them, not to shield Cassian, to keep Severin's words from becoming the only path. "Your mother's refuge is not a stain," she said to Cassian. "Do not wash it away with us." His gaze moved to her. There was grief in it now, yes, but also shame. Not the pretty kind that begged for forgiveness. The useful kind that finally understood the weight of what had been signed in his name. Talia held his stare. "If you deny what saved you, every wolf beneath this palace stays chained, so your crown can feel clean." Cassian looked toward the 7. The last wolf, Hearth Wolf of Vale, watched him with old, clouded eyes. Cassian's wolf shadow trembled behind him, thin and torn but still standing. At last, Cassian spoke. "I was refuge before I was crown." The buried chamber shook. Above them, the cracked crown screamed. Not like a person, like a law losing ownership. Black ash poured through the ceiling cracks. The roots around the 7 wolves tightened, trying to hold the old dead in place. The wolves growled, not in threat, but in pain. Cassian dropped to one knee. Not from reverence this time, but because the admission tore through whatever stolen authority had been keeping him upright. His wolf shadow shrank again. The monstrous royal shape melted away, leaving something leaner, darker, wounded, and real. Talia saw it then. Cassian's wolf was not dying because the truth weakened it. It was surviving being stripped of stolen breath. Myra saw it too and hated it. "Look at him," she called. "The king is unmade. Ashcrown cannot kneel to a refuge. Born alpha." Talia turned toward the stair. but it can kneel to houses wearing sanctuary bones? Silence cut the hall above. The pearls at Mara's throat clicked once. The prey ledger answered from above, its voice traveling down through stone. House Voss claim under review. Sanctuary bone possession confirmed. Land grant founded on converted refuge. Mara's face hardened. Then let every house fall. I would rather rule ruins than be judged by kennel blood. There she was. Not a jealous woman. A noble daughter of a system that had mistaken theft for civilization. Severin lifted the blade again. Enough. The crown is cracking, because the old witness debt has no vessel. Talia looked at him sharply. What does that mean? The 7 wolves lowered their heads. Severin's eyes found hers. Law must rest somewhere. The 7 held the debt for 3 centuries. If they are released, the sanctuary age requires a living foundation. A witness strong enough to hold every reopened claim. Cassian rose despite the pain. No. Talia ignored him and looked at the wolves. Is he telling the truth? Hearthwolf of Vale answered softly. Partly. That was worse. Talia's stomach turned cold. The wolf continued. The law needs witness. Not a cage. Not a body buried beneath it. That was the crown's invention. Severin's mouth tightened. Talia understood the shape of the next trap. If the court could not make her prey, it would make her foundation. If she could not be hunted, she could be honored into imprisonment. Living witness. Sacred burden. Beautiful words for another room beneath another throne. She looked at the prey ledger's light glowing from above. Law that needs a body buried under it is just another hunt, she said. The ash pit flared silver. Cassian looked at her as if the sentence had struck something deep inside him. Then the blackened blade moved in Severin's hand. Not toward her. Toward the cracked ceiling. Toward the hall of warrants. Toward the broken crown above. The blade trembled as if pulled by an older command. Talia felt the sigil down her arm burn. Holtblade recognized. The ledger wrote from above. Original cut unpaid. Severin tried to lower the weapon. It would not obey him. For the first time, the blade pulled against the huntmaster's grip. Talia stepped closer. Cassian turned. Talia, don't touch it. She did not look at him. You do not get to command my fear either. That stopped him. She held out her bleeding hand, palm still cut from the blade's last strike. The blackened silver shivered. Severin's voice dropped. If you demand the first debt, it will show you what the crown was built around. Some truths cannot be survived. Talia looked at the 7 wolves. At Cassian's ruined shadow. At the stair above where nobles were already choosing which version of truth would leave them richest. Then it should not have been hidden under people who were already suffering, she said. The blade tore free of Severin's hand and turned in the air. Not toward Talia. Toward the hall above. Every boundary line in the buried chamber shot upward through the ceiling. Stone split. The ash pit opened like an eye. The 7 wolves howled together, and the sound drove the hidden roots back into the walls. Above, the cracked crown lifted from the floor by itself. The 2 broken halves opened wider. Inside was no jewel, no royal relic, no sacred fire. There, beating inside the crown of ash like a stolen heart, was the original witness stone, split in 2 by the Holt blade 300 years before. The sanctuary gate wrote one final command in silver fire. Restore the stone, or every refuge remains prey. The broken crown opened like a wound. Inside it, the original witness stone pulsed in 2 dark halves, split clean through the center by the Holt blade 300 years before. Every silver boundary line in Ashcrown bent toward it. Every wolf fell silent. Even the 7 chained wolves beneath the kennels stopped breathing. Talia understood then. The sanctuary law had never died. It had been trapped inside the crown that claimed to replace it. Cassian stood beneath the cracked ceiling, his wolf shadow thin and wounded behind him. How do we restore it? The sanctuary gate answered. Not by crown hand alone. Talia stepped forward. Good. His eyes moved to her. A crown broke it, she said. A crown should not repair it and call itself merciful. Severin laughed softly. Stone remembers force. The Holt blade cut it. The Holt blade must join it. The blackened blade hung in the air, no longer fully obeying him. Talia reached for it. Cassian moved. Talia. She stopped only long enough to look at him. Do not make fear sound like protection. He went still, then he stepped back. That was the first thing he gave her that did not feel like command. Talia closed her hand around the blade. Cold tore through her palm and up her arm. For one breath, she felt every false warrant Ashcrown had ever written. Children without den. Right, widows marked for debt. Wounded wolves hunted after asking refuge. And girls turned into legal prey because no house wanted to answer for them. She almost dropped it. Then the first chained wolf spoke. Narrow of the field stands witness. The second followed. Snow. Between. Teeth stands witness. One by one, all 7 gave their names. With each voice, the blade grew lighter. Not gentle. Cleaner. Cassian knelt beneath the broken crown but did not touch the stone. Cassian Kallor stands witness, he said, voice rough. Refuge. Born before crown. Named. Debtor before king. The hall shook. Mara's voice cracked from the gallery. If you restore it, House Voss loses the western fields. Talia looked at the sanctuary bone pearls around her throat. No. You lose the right to wear what you stole. The pearls snapped. They tore from Mara's necklace and flew toward the broken stone. No longer jewels, but fragments of old boundary bone. Across the hall, noble rings, cloak pins, and relics began ripping free from their owners, each one made from some stolen piece of refuge. The court had dressed itself in Mercy's remains. Now Mercy was taking itself back. Talia drove the blade into the crack between the 2 halves of the witness stone. For one terrible second, nothing happened. Then the blade screamed. Blackness poured from it. 3 centuries of conversions, emergency doctrines, clean legal phrases, and royal necessities. The darkness climbed Talia's arm, trying to make her blood stop counting, trying to turn witness into burden. Cassian stepped forward. This time, the boundary did not block him. But he did not touch her. He placed one hand on the floor beside her and spoke to the law. Do not put the dead inside her. The darkness faltered. Cassian raised his voice. The debt belongs to the crown, the houses, the huntmasters, and every oath that fed on refuge. Let it return to record. Not to a girl. Talia's breath broke. For the first time, he had not tried to save her by taking control. He had made room for the truth without making her carry all of it. The witness stone blazed. The 2 halves slammed together. Silver light exploded through the hall. Below, the chains around the 7 wolves shattered. The crown of ash collapsed into black dust. Cassian's wolf shadow fell to its knees, shedding the last stolen breath it had been forced to bear. When it rose again, it was smaller. Truer. Its gold eyes were clear. Severin stared at the restored stone with grief sharpened into hatred. You have made kings impossible. Talia lowered the blade. Its black edge had burned away. No. We made hunting mercy illegal again. The sanctuary gate opened fully. Every converted prey warrant in the kingdom burned into view. Every false debt. Every stolen refuge field. Every noble house that had profited from sanctuary blood. Cassian stood before them without a crown. All prey warrants are ended, he said. All sanctuary claims reopen under witness law. Every grant built on converted refuge will be tried before the restored stone. Mayra lifted her chin from the floor among her broken pearls. And your throne? Cassian looked at the dust of the crown. Then at Talia. My throne stands only if it survives the truth, he said. If it does not, it was another hunt. By dawn, the Hall of Warrants had become the Hall of Refuge. The prey ledger lay open at the center, rewritten in silver. The restored witness stone stood where the crown had once rested. The 7 wolves slept beneath open moonlight for the first time in 300 years. Talia stood before the stone with her bandaged hand against her chest. The prey mark was gone. In its place remained the crescent boundary and wolf print. Not a royal mark, not a mate claim, a witness mark. Cassian approached without crown, guards, or command. I cannot undo what I signed, he said. No, Talia answered. I can read every warrant. You can. I can stand debt before I stand king. Talia looked at him then. He was exhausted, stripped of certainty, but not weak. Perhaps that was the first honest thing about him. And when the law names more? She asked. I will not ask you to bleed first. The answer was not romance. Not yet. It was better. A beginning that did not try to steal the ending. Cassian lowered his head. May I stand beside the witness? Talia let the silence hold him long enough to matter. Beside, she said. Never across the boundary from those asking refuge. Cassian looked at the open gate, the freed wolves, and the kingdom that would hate the truth before it learned how to survive it. Beside, he said. Only then did Talia place her uninjured hand on the witness stone. Silver lines spread outward from her touch. Not trapping, not shielding, opening, and across Ashcrown, every old sanctuary gate woke before sunrise.